හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Friday the 22nd of March 2024. Breaking shackles. Debt moratorium on the horizon for Sri Lanka under the India-Paris Club debt treatment plan. Land ownership. 408 freehold land deeds granted under the Urumaya program to people in Jaffna. A total of 234 acres of land released to owners. Friends in need. Japan commends Sri Lanka's measures to combat corruption. Pledges support for ongoing activities.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Dirasinghe joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now in your top story tonight, several months after Sri Lanka reached an agreement in principle with its creditors to restructure its bilateral debt obligations, Sri Lanka is set to be closing in on a debt treatment plan with India and the Paris Club, with a moratorium of up to 6 years and reduced interest rates during the repayment period on the table as part of the treatment. According to the Hindu newspaper, discussions are at an advanced stage and it is expected that a formal agreement on the terms will be reached soon. Meanwhile, State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinghe slammed a report published by an institution which stated that Sri Lanka has only fulfilled 33% of the conditions outlined in the agreement with the IMF. He went on to question why the IMF reached a staff-level agreement with Sri Lanka if the country has breached any conditions.
So far, China and the Official Creditor Committee have agreed in principle to restructure the debt owed by Sri Lanka. As per agreements, China will support the restructure of $4.2 billion of debt, while the official creditors and the Paris Club will assist in restructuring of $5.9 billion. In a statement last November, the Ministry of Finance stated that the agreement reached with the OCC and the Paris Club consists of a mix of long-term maturity extensions and a reduction in interest rates. Further, the Paris Club said that the Official Creditor Committee stands ready and awaits the formalization of the agreement in the coming weeks in a memorandum of understanding with Sri Lankan authorities. Several months after this development, the Indian newspaper The Hindu, quoting sources familiar with Sri Lanka's debt restructuring negotiations, reported that Sri Lanka is close to finalizing a debt treatment plan with India and the Paris Club, pointing to a likely moratorium of up to 6 years and a reduced interest rate during the repayment period. The Hindu, quoting a Colombo-based source who participated in a recent discussion with the members of the Official Creditor Committee, noted that the discussions are at an advanced stage and added that a formal agreement on the terms can be expected very soon. Meanwhile, this morning, State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinghe commented on Sri Lanka's successful conclusion of the second review under the Extended Fund Facility Program with the IMF.
අපේ මේ ණය ප්‍රතිහෝගතකරණය වෙනුවෙන්ම ජපානයත් ඉන්දියාවත් ප්‍රංශයත් සමසභාපති දරන නිල ණය හිමියන්ගේ කමිටුව.
We are engaging in discussions to restructure debt with the Paris Club and the Official Creditors Committee, formed and co-chaired by Japan, India and France. At a time when we pass certain positive milestones, certain institutions which claim to be independent operate according to whims and fancies of certain political parties. 2 or 3 days before the government reached a staff-level agreement with the IMF, a certain entity published a report stating that the government has only fulfilled 33% of the conditions outlined in the IMF agreement. If the government only fulfilled 33% of the conditions, then how was a staff-level agreement reached, consequent to a successful second review by the IMF? The same entity, quoting a survey they conducted, stated that the government approval rating dropped by 7% in February. All we have to ask is, how did the IMF see the government's efforts to establish economic stability in such a positive light when this so-called independent institution was oblivious to it?
New Dulux Pentolite Hygiene Plus. Refreshing walls for generations.
Now marking the successful conclusion of yet another phase of the Urume program to grant freehold land deeds to 2 million people of the country, 408 land deeds were granted to the people of Jaffna today by President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Addressing the ceremony granting the deeds, the head of state said the government has a duty to return the rights taken away from the public. Further, President Wickremesinghe added that he has urged officials to conclude the Urume program by May or June this year. In another development, the President released 234 acres of land that were held by the Jaffna Security Forces headquarters to the members of the public.
Under another phase of the Urume program, which aims to grant freehold land deeds to 2 million people, 408 land deeds were granted to the people of Jaffna in Ottagapulam this morning under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
During
the time of the kings, land ownership was vested in the people. However, the enactment of the Wastelands Ordinance during the British colonial period led to the government assuming ownership of the lands, as we did not possess deeds under British law. The government owns 80% of the lands across Sri Lanka. The rights taken away from the public must be given back. Hence, we have decided to provide freehold land rights to all holders of land permits. Those rights must be provided. What could the government do after confiscating these lands? What we must do is return this right to the people. This is what we initiated through the Urume program. I have urged officials to conclude the program by May or June. In addition, we have initiated the Agriculture Modernization Program, selecting one divisional secretariat in each district for this purpose. In Jaffna, Kopai has been chosen. This initiative aims to modernize agriculture in the province, leading to increased income opportunities for its residents. Consequently, the three forces are collaborating to provide the necessary assistance. Additionally, contributions from reputable companies are also being facilitated for sales, while the initiative also receives support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This means we have the necessary support. We want to strengthen the economy of the North. This is only the start. In another 2 to 3 years, the North will be a major economic hub in Sri Lanka. I extend an invitation to everyone to collectively contribute to this transformation.
එහෙනම් මෙතන මේ ආරම්භය විතරයි. ඊළඟ අවුරුදු 2-3 දී උතුර ලංකාවේ ප්‍රධාන ආර්ථිකයක් වෙනවා. ඉතින් අපි ඔක්කොම එකඟ වෙලා ඒ ගමනේ යමු කියලා මම ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
Meanwhile, 234 acres of land from 5 Gramanilladari divisions in the Valikamal North that were under the Jaffna Security Force headquarters were released to the public. These lands are intended for agricultural purposes in alignment with the government's agricultural modernization program. The ceremony to release the lands were held at the Air Force Base in Palali today under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Now in other news, the Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe says they agree with the recommendations of the Committee on Public Finance with regard to the salary hike that was made by the monetary regulator last month. However, the Central Bank chief requested that the salaries for the month of March under the newly increased scheme have to be paid due to them being currently processed in their systems. He made these comments during the recently held meeting at the Committee on Public Finance under the chairmanship of Dr. Harsha De Silva.
Of a recommendation to the parliamentary association our salary issue, we certainly have no issue with that. Only a clarification on the implementation. That's a big practical issue. I just had a meeting today with the finance minister and the president how to implement that. President said he would appoint a committee. We can go ahead with that. The practical issue has to recommend here to defer with immediate effect. In there, this month of March, the salary is already being processed in the system and they are due to get the salary on Monday 25th. So if we are to go back to the earlier one, we have to completely have a revise the system and accommodate that. It will take a bit of time. It's too short for us to do that. That's the first issue. And second one, once the president agreed to appoint a committee, this time period, 4 weeks, is from the date of the committee appointed, or if then there will be a time constraint for this new committee to come up with all the revisions. So these are the two areas. If you can please give us some guidance.
I'm glad that the central bank is in agreement with the recommendations of the Committee on Public Finance. I'm also glad that the President and in his capacity the Minister of Finance is also in agreement with the committee's recommendations. The committee, I think, one thing that this committee wanted to make sure was that the act was not to be amended, because we stand very strongly that the central bank has autonomy. It has it with respect to monetary policy. So the separation of powers we stand by in this committee. The question of implementation, I personally don't have a problem, but I want to put it to the committee. The two requests. One is whether they can go ahead with the March salary because it is in process and it has to be paid on Monday. And two, you see, and thereafter hold this until we arrive at an acceptable resolution to this. So I put it to the committee to decide on that.
මාර්ච් මාසෙක මේ යන විදිහටම ගිහිල්ලා හැබැයි 4 weeks කියන එක කවදා හරි කමිටුවක් පත් කරපුවාම 4 weeks වෙන්න බෑ. ඒක ඊයේ announce කරපු දවස් සල්ලි ටික වැඩි ගන්න හම්බුනාට පස්සේ
මම නිර්දේශ කළ තියෙන මුදල්මැතිතුමානේ කමිටුව පත් කරන්න. එතකොට එතුමා මම කතා කරා මුදෙක් එතුමා කිව්වා පත් කරන්න. සුදුසු සමාජිකයන් සොයා බලලා. එතකොට ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙන්නේ දැන් අපි කිව්ව සතියක් පරක් වුණොත් අර කාර්යය සති 3යි ඉතුරු වෙන්නේ මේ කාර්යයට. ඒකයි තියෙන.
ඔව් අපි ඒක පැහැදිලිව සඳහන් කරේ නෑ 4 පටන් ගන්න කවදාද කියලා. මම අපේ සමාජිකයත් එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරලා ඔබලාට ලිපියකින් දන්වන්නම් කවදාද.
Now in other news, Japanese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Mizukoshi Hideaki, stated that tough economic reforms which are in effect in Sri Lanka at the moment to ensure economic stability must be seen as a testament to the Sri Lankan leadership's wisdom rather than seeing such reforms as a sign of weakness. Hideaki went on to say that the Sri Lankan economy has seen immense development as it follows the IMF program, further commending the government on its efforts towards achieving economic stability within a short span of time. The Japanese envoy highlighted that it is important to not protect a loss-making industry through government funding and added that Japan supports Sri Lanka's efforts towards developing effective anti-corruption mechanisms.
A panel discussion under the theme Economic Development and Modernization with Lessons from Japan was held in Colombo yesterday under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The event was also attended by Japanese Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Mizukoshi Hideaki.
Reforms such as tax reform, electricity reform, or SOE reform may be challenging and not always popular to citizens. However, viewing the utilization of such external pressure for the betterment of the country should not be seen as a sign of weakness, but as a testament to the wisdom of leaders. From an international perspective, agreements with IMF serve as backing for Sri Lanka's commitment to pursuing rational and consistent economic policies. Japan would not have supported the debt restructuring negotiation of Sri Lanka without agreement with IMF, which assures the consistency of Sri Lanka's economic policy. Sri Lanka's economy has stabilized under the IMF program. I commend the immense efforts of the current government and the people of Sri Lanka to bring about this economic stability in a very short time. However, without a competitive export industry, once Sri Lanka lifts its import restriction, there is a risk of foreign currency shortage again. So, therefore, after achieving the stabilization, it is essential to build up a competitive industry that can push sustainable development of the country. It is important not to protect a loss-making industry with government money out of favoritism, but to ensure a smooth transition from a uncompetitive industry to a more competitive sector with a future. I hope in Sri Lanka, ongoing anti-corruption reforms draw lessons from various countries, including Japan, to develop effective anti-corruption mechanisms. We would like to strongly support ongoing Sri Lanka's effort in this field, and we are funding the UNDP project for enhancement of the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption. In fact, I had a meeting with them this morning, and I have encouraged their efforts.
Now in your political news tonight, founder of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Basil Rajapaksa, revealed that his party prioritizes the general election, adding that it must be held before the presidential election. During his second meeting with President Ranil Wickremesinghe, he went on to say that the final decision on which election should be held first must be taken considering the people's opinion as well as the overall well-being of the democracy. In the meantime, parliamentarian of the SLPP, SM Chandrasena, stated that his party is ready to face the election regardless of which election will be held first.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe once again met the founder of SLPP, Basil Rajapaksa, yesterday. According to internal political sources, Basil Rajapaksa has claimed that his party, the SLPP, prefers a general election to be held before the presidential election. However, sources revealed that Rajapaksa did not expect a final decision on the sequence of elections during yesterday's meeting with the president. Basil Rajapaksa has further stated that the final decision must be taken considering the general public's opinion on the matter, as well as the overall well-being of democracy. Internal political sources further reported that Basil Rajapaksa informed President Wickremesinghe of rumours circulating in society on the postponement of elections under the pretext of amending the current election mechanism. Rajapaksa went on to state that such suspicions are not favourable. However, President Wickremesinghe has ensured the elections will not be postponed. During the discussion, Basil Rajapaksa highlighted the importance of engaging the nationalist camp, which includes trade unions as well as the Buddhist clergy, in discussions. The SLPP's founder particularly urged the president to involve the nationalist camp when taking decisions affecting the country's economy and state enterprises. President Wickremesinghe has accepted the proposal put forward as such by Basil Rajapaksa.
We are ready to face an election. The general election must be held before the presidential election. If not, the newly elected president's party will secure a landslide victory. If the country is to have fair rule, the general election must be held first.
The internal situation of parties can be gauged through the general election. Recently, a slew of presidential candidates emerged. Actual candidates can be identified after the general election. The SLPP is not looking to avoid the presidential election. We will nominate the most suitable presidential candidate. We are ready to face whichever election that comes first.
Now, in a controversial political development, former President and Chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Maithripala Sirisena, said he is ready to reveal the mastermind behind the Easter Sunday attacks. Addressing media during his visit to Kandy, he said he is ready to make a statement in this regard if the court orders him to do so. However, he added that the judges are responsible to maintain the confidentiality of his statement.
More than a disappointment, I was hurt. I contested in the presidential election in 2015 as the common candidate. I had a good way forward for the country, but unfortunately I was not able to initiate those plans. I lost my powers with the implementation of the 19th Amendment. I willingly agreed to curtail my powers. However, I never thought that they would abuse those powers. Both the government and the opposition decided to attack me afterwards. Later, the Easter Sunday attacks happened. I know who planned it. All the terrorists who are being tried before the trial at Banau were apprehended during my tenure. However, the mastermind behind the attack has not been revealed yet. I know who executed the attacks. If the court orders to make a statement with this regard, I am ready to do so. However, the judges are responsible to maintain the confidentiality of my statement.
Now, the Columbo High Court today decided to take into consideration former Health Minister Keheliya Ramukwalla's revision application for bail on the 25th of March. Meanwhile, the Attorney General submitted to the Supreme Court that he would not represent the former minister or any other respondents of the fundamental rights petition filed in connection with the purchase of medicine from unregistered Indian companies during the tenure of the previous government. With that, here's a look at more news across the island in brief. The Columbo High Court today decided to consider the revision application filed by former Health Minister Keheliya Ramukwalla seeking to be released on bail. As such, the former minister's application will be taken into consideration on the 25th of March by High Court Judge Sujiva Nishankar. Meanwhile, the Attorney General submitted to the Supreme Court that he will not represent the former Health Minister and the other respondents of the fundamental rights petition filed in connection with the purchase of medicine from two unregistered Indian companies. Meanwhile, the suspect of the vehicle hijacking in Horana on the 17th of March was apprehended by the police in Wadduwa. The suspect, posing as a buyer interested in the vehicle, reportedly hijacked it while on a test drive with the owner. The remains of a 3-year-old child were discovered in a cultivation well in an estate in Vatavala. The body was discovered as a result of a search that was initiated after the parents reported that the child had gone missing. In other local news, Hikkadu police lifeguards managed to rescue 6 foreign travellers drowning in the waters off the coast of Hikkadu. The police confirmed that 2 children, 3 women along with 1 man were rescued in the operation. Welcome back. Now in your business news, Sri Lanka's tea production was up 6.7% to 19.99 million kilograms in February 2024, with high, mid and low groans rising. The high-grown tea in February 2024 was 4.52 million kilograms, up from 4.28 million. Medium groans were 3.64, up from 3.1 million kilograms, and low groans were 11.82 million, up from 11.36 million kilograms last year. According to data published by Ceylon Tea Brokers, exports, including re-exports, were up 20.27% to 22.31 million kilograms. Export earnings were reported at $127 million, up from $104 million last year. The average FOB price was $5.72 million, rather $5.72 a kilo, up from $5.64 last year. Tea in bulk was 11 million kilograms, valued at 16.97 billion rupees. Tea in packets was at 8.2 million kilograms, valued at 14.1 billion rupees, and tea in bags was 2.2 million kilos, valued at 6.2 billion rupees. The top buyer was Iraq with 5.3 million kilos, up from 4.6 million last year, followed by the UAE with 4.9 kilos, up from 3.4 million last year. Now, Sri Lanka's top stock market indices closed in green as a result of price gains in counters such as Hatta National Bank, John Keells Holdings and Commercial Bank, with turnover crossing 1.5 billion rupees. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in Haley's, Sampath Bank and John Keells Holdings. Mixed interest was observed in Hatta National Bank, Valuable One, Chevron Lubricants, while retail investors' interest was noted in Brown Investments, Royal Ceramics and LOLC Finance. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers. During the week, the ASPI and the S&P Sri Lanka 20 lost 0.7% and 0.6% respectively, while recording an average daily turnover of 1.68 billion rupees. Capital goods sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, as the sector index gained 1.49%. The banking sector was the second highest contributor to market turnover, with the sector index gaining 0.82%. Now let's take a look at the rupee exchange rates during the day. And now let's take a look at today's corporate news segment for the evening.
Oxford College of Business won the Best Corporate Citizen Sustainability Awards 2023 under the Knowledge Services category. Organized by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, the Best Corporate Citizen Sustainability Awards recognize organizations that demonstrate exceptional commitment to sustainability across various sectors. In a statement following the award ceremony, Director and CEO of the Oxford College of Business, Derana English, expressed his profound gratitude for the institution's recognition. Allianz Finance plc announced the launch of a pioneering new sustainability initiative that is aimed at promoting environmental conservation in Sri Lanka. The project AFC Hapannu Forest is a forest created by the child savers of the company and dedicated to the future generations of children. The project is being developed with the collaboration of the District Forest Office Kandy and is managed under the command of the Conservator Forest. In other corporate news, the prestigious Young Computer Scientist competition, a collaborative effort between Federation of Information Technology Industry Sri Lanka, the Ministry of Education and the University of Columbo School of Computing, marked its 22nd year with a grand award ceremony. The YCS competition, a major initiative in Sri Lanka's ICT education landscape, aims to identify and nurture ICT talents among school children from an early age, fostering their development and integration into the industry. Over the past 2 decades, it has served as a launchpad for numerous young minds, propelling them towards successful careers in ICT technology.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Adaderana First at 9. Stay in touch with us on www.adaderana.lk for the latest developments around the clock. Thank you. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.